Welcome to Mack-n-Cheeze Music Podcast with your hosts, Brian DeHart.
Hey, thanks, Bruno. My guest for today's podcast is Eric Ritts. Eric and I have worked through the years on various projects.
Good job, moron!
Why you doing this to me?
Pretty much my job.
Okay. Eric is currently working with Marco Bass Guitars. Marco Bass Guitars would be located around the Salem, Oregon area. A custom luthier building basses and guitars with inspiration and soul. Eric has been working with Marco Cortez for the last couple of years, and he is here to explain the why of Marco Bass Guitars. Without further ado,
Yo! Adrian!
This is Brian at Mack-n-Cheeze with my friend Eric Ritts.
Hey now.
And Eric, you are currently representing and working with Marco Bass Guitars.
I do. Yeah, I'm sort of an apprentice luthier, sort of jack of all trades kind of guy with him. You know, learning the business and doing something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So how did you get that hookup? That's interesting. A little bit of history with you and Marco.
You know, I knew him. I met him it was about 4 or 5 years ago at an event up in town here through the Facebook group Seattle Area Bass Nerds.
Yeah.
And every year that group sort of puts together a little event at a local club or bar and rent the place out and have sort of our own little trade show, slop and meat kind of thing. And he was there and I met him, and I wasn't really playing much then. I was recovering from a broken arm. And
I remember that.
I had just gotten the cast off. But he was a nice guy and he had interesting stuff. And a year later, I'm dating a woman who lives about, 15 miles from him.
Yeah.
Down in the Salem, Oregon area. So I went and visited and got to know him. You know?
Yeah.
Interesting cat.
Yeah, I've met him. I really like him and Rose. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I mean, he's how do I say? I mean, he's kind of a wizard, you know? I mean, he's self-taught, and so he does things a little bit differently than other people, and he's come up with his own way of building basses that is really kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
You know, especially his pickups. You know, he's just a really unique guy.
For a lot of people listening in, they probably don't know of Marco, so maybe you could give a little bit of history on him.
Marco Cortez, so let's see. He's from Brazil. When he was and this is from him, and I'm probably butchering it a little bit, so forgive me, Marco, but when he was a teenager, he wanted to play bass guitar but didn't have one.
Right.
So what you did in Brazil is you went to the local church and you played the bass that they had there, which is one of the things that he did. Not unlike Richard Bona and Etienne Mbappe in Cameroon.
Yeah.
Which is their same story. In any case, but then he decided he wanted to build one, and they didn't have any money, so he went out and found some wood and traced a shape on a body, and then took a drill and drilled as many holes as he needed to, and then popped the body out, and carved it with a Coke bottle, and from there on out he figured out how to make every single piece on a bass guitar, from tuning pegs to pickups to a bridge, and he's been at it ever since. 40 years of bass building is built guitars and basses in Brazil, and is basically just a creative, bright, inquisitive, curious guy.
There's a lot of really internationally famous bass players that use his gear.
There are some. I mean, let's see. So there's Janet Jackson's bass player plays a Marco bass. The fairly well-known guy in Spain named Pepe Bao, who plays a Marco bass. I don't know who they are, but there's certainly a couple of people in Brazil, because he is Brazilian, which is where he started, of course. There's a lot of guys, there's a lot of gospel guys who are playing his instruments. what's his name, Pick Funk, and some couple of other.
Oh, I didn't have that pegged for gospel. I thought he was some sort of R&B cat.
Well, he's probably R&B/gospel, but there's a couple of guys, because he's deeply embedded in that community. And there's a lot of guys in Chicago, who Marco's big in Chicago, and he chose Chicago as a place to market his instruments pretty heavily because of the, believe it or not, the weather extremes. So...
Wow, explain that.
Well, I mean, anybody who's from the Pacific Northwest here knows that, your setup on your instrument changes drastically in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. The humidity changes, the amount of water in the air changes, and your temperature changes, and your instrument moves. And he wanted to be in a place where there were really extreme weather changes so that he could verify his processes that keep a neck from moving around too much.
You have a good story about that.
I do. So it was was it last summer or the summer before? Anyway, I have several Marco basses, and I've got a really nice fretless. And it's common knowledge, it's common knowledge in the bass building community that you put a couple of graphite reinforcing bars on either side of your truss rod to keep the neck stiffer and keep it from moving. When I first talked to Marco about basses, I asked him about that because everybody knows you're supposed to do that. And he goes, I don't do that. You don't need to. It's silly. It's a waste. And I said, what? And he goes, well, yeah, Eric. I mean, a graphite graphite's a different material than wood. It's going to expand and contract at a different rate than wood is. Why would you put something that expands and contracts at a different rate than wood in something that you want to keep from expanding and contracting?
Makes sense.
And that kind of makes sense. And so I left 2 basses in the back seat of a car over a weekend, a really hot weekend, and of course it gets to be 140 degrees in the car. And one of them it wasn't a Marco bass, but it had graphite reinforcing rods in it and all the fancy doohickeys and bells and whistles. And and that's a 4-string bass, and my 6-string Marco bass that just simply has 1 truss rod in the neck. I came back from the weekend and realized how bad I'd screwed up and thought I'd ruined a couple of basses, and I pulled the fretless out, and the strings were touching the neck at the 12th fret. The neck had expanded that much, and that's the one with the graphite reinforcing bars. I got out the 6th string and it hadn't budged. Didn't move. Did not move at all. Still in tune. Still in tune. Didn't budge. I have yet to have to do a setup on that neck. And what it's about is whether a neck moves or not has to do with how well it's sealed off from the environment. And it has everything to do with Marco's finishing process. Mm-hmm. And, not only does he make his own pickups and all that kind of stuff, he's formulated his own finishes and his own ways of sealing the wood with his finishes. I don't know how that works completely, but I know that it does work. And, you're talking about a 6-string neck, which is, 50% wider than a 4-string neck, so there's more surface area to move. And that neck did not move. And it was the hottest weekend of the year. It had to be 140 degrees in that car. And they were in there for 72 hours. And I had to get out the truss rod and reset up the fretless bass, and nothing on the 6-string.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Not a single bit of adjusting needed to be done. So, and that sort of speaks to learning something that other people don't learn. I mean, there's an advantage, I think, to being self-taught, as it were. And think about it. I mean, Jaco Pastorius was self-taught, and he did things that nobody else did.
Right.
And, they also talked many years ago, Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth and all that, and there was an interview one time with him, I think it was Bill Moyers, and asked him why didn't he just continue forward and get a PhD in his studies of mysticism and religion and religious experience. And he said, I didn't want it to cloud my thinking. And I think that's a really important feature in the Marco instruments, is that he learned it himself. And he didn't go with conventional knowledge, and he's discovered things that other people don't know.
Right, yeah.
And that's one of the things that make his instruments special.
And that legacy is probably going to pass when he's gone.
Boy, and isn't that a difficult one?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a guy who makes his own pickups and has figured things out about pickups that nobody else does or knows. The two most important things about an electric instrument are the pickups and the way the neck plays and feels. That is to say, the setup. And he's got ways of sanding, building a neck, putting a radius on a fingerboard, and putting a little dip in the neck like it should be that nobody else knows. And it's really quite remarkable. I mean, his instruments are incredibly playable, and they sound absolutely fantastic. And in fact, he's, another piece of common knowledge about bass guitars in particular is that you have to have a preamp in the guitar. You don't want passive basses at all, period. And there's a lot of people who just absolutely believe that. And Marco's actually making pickups that sound like they have a preamp built into them, but they don't. And there's something funny that happens with preamps is they compress the sound of the pickup. The way that I've always described it, and I was a preamp guy forever and ever, until I had a bass that didn't have one, and I kind of noticed something about it, and that is the sound. It sounded three-dimensional to me. Mm-hmm. Let's say your sound has an X coordinate and a Y coordinate, and that's it when you have a preamp. But there's a Z coordinate when you don't have a preamp. There's just this depth in this sound that you don't get. And I started talking to Marco about all that, and he's the one who convinced me that you don't need preamps. And he said to me, preamps compress the sound. And preamps were basically invented to make the bass louder and more clear on stage. Mm-hmm. And you can get the same thing with a good pickup. And so Marco has these pickups that just sound absolutely amazing. And his struggle is to get people to buy basses without preamps in them. And if he is going to put a preamp in it, it can't color the sound of the pickups too much. And if you listen to his pickups in a passive mode and then with a preamp, you can definitely hear that something goes away.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, because that Z factor you're talking about, it reminds me that like there's a second and third harmonic in there that other basses don't have.
It could be. I don't really know what it is, but they sound fantastic in passive mode, and I'm kind of bummed. I mean, I have 4 Marco basses now, and only one of them doesn't have a preamp in it. Chris Bordezo has that bass right now. Yeah. I have, there's 2 of them. I have a 5-string that's a kind of a unique instrument, and I have another 5-string that's got a Charlie Escher preamp in it that is based on it's a filter preamp. I don't even understand how it works, but it's about as close as a preamp as there is that doesn't affect or color the sound, or compress the sound, too much. Yeah. So Marco's really doing something special with pickups. He's doing something really special with finishes. And how he's finishing the necks, I don't know what he's doing.
He doesn't let anybody know, does he?
No. Actually, I mean, when Marco's upstairs and the door's shut, you just wait until he comes downstairs. That's just the way you roll. He's really got something special going, and the idea now is to get a Marco bass in as many hands as you can.
What is some of the interesting, without giving up his trade secrets, you had mentioned that he has a definite, when he's shaping a bass body,
a neck.
Is it the necks? Yeah.
Yeah. Shaping a body is a real basic thing unless you're you can build a basic solid body without, people build hollow bodies and they build them to resonate and all this kind of stuff. And he's got a base like that too. But the basic hollow body is just a body. But he's got a way of sanding the neck. So there's a radius on the neck across that goes across the neck. And then you also need, you need a dip in the neck, like a bow. I mean, you need the neck to have a little bit of what they call relief at the 12th fret, as any bass player knows, because that's, the halfway point of the string is where it oscillates the furthest. And if you don't have a little dip in the neck at that 12th fret, the string is going to bottom out. He has a way of sanding. He has a way of sanding just a little dip into the neck that makes it so playable from the 1st fret to the 21st fret or the 24th fret that you practically don't even need to use the truss rod. You just barely touch the truss rod and give it a little relief, or actually tighten it up. Yeah, just a skosh. And it's a truly amazing process. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I've seen it. Yeah, and I just go. My chin is on the floor. I just go, my God, and it's just he's just an interesting, fascinating guy with, 40 years of experience. Yeah. And, they really are. And his guitars are great too. Ask John Passarelli about the Telecaster I got him. I mean,
it's his favorite instrument, I think.
Yeah, he said, I feel like I've had this guitar for 25 years. I was talking to Chip Sheeran the other day, who's famous for being the bassist who recorded Rapper's Delight way back in the day, right? And he said, I asked him what he digs so much about the Marco instruments, and he goes, well, besides the tone, it just feels like a 30-year-old instrument. I mean, it comes to you already broken in. And that's one of the things that Marco talks to you. I know I can say this is, you carve the neck, and he always wants put your hand in the neck. Put your hand on the neck. I want you to put some sandpaper in your hand. I want the feel of the hand on the neck, and that's what you get, And that's a super special thing.
So, have you been sanding bass necks?
I have. Indeed, I have.
And that process, when you're talking about you have your hand on the neck and you're feeling the neck, can you describe that process?
Well, not really. It's just that. How do I say it? I can't describe the process, but it just feels when you're done. It feels like a person has touched this neck. It's not sanded by a machine.
There you go.
There's some life in the neck. Right. When you do that, you do put a piece of humanity, the human experience. There's a reason why handmade is better than machine made. And of course, every luthier uses machines. I mean, you have to, right? But when you do that, it makes a huge difference in the neck and the way the neck feels.
Yeah, but so I'm the drummer. I'm the guy who hangs out with musicians. So this is all about discovering the process for me as well. So the bodies you don't hand sand. You would just
no. There's some hand sanding in the bodies to some extent, and it depends on where you are in the process. But you get a body off the CNC, and there's a little bit of carving you have to do.
CNC.
That's the computer operated routing machine.
Okay.
So you can cut everybody does it, right? I mean, it's just not feasible to cut a body out on a bandsaw or even, it's the best way to do it because it's faster and it's cleaner. I mean, it's deadly accurate, and it won't make a mistake like a person will. But you still have to carve the body a little bit. You still have to sand it. You still have to route the little quarter round on the top of the body, and and you want it. You need to be fast, and so you use machines to do that. But you're still.
So the CNC, does it operate off of a basic template, or does Marco have to program that template?
It's a program.
Does he program it, or is he just using someone else's?
You get software. You can buy software for it. I mean. The Fender Jazz Bass, Fender P Bass sort of look is common, but you can program your own shapes and stuff in there. I mean, that's sort of how you do your own. Every luthier has his own claim to what he or she thinks a neck should look like and sound like, or not sound like, but feel like. And he basically programmed his own, he carved a neck by hand that he likes, and then did all the measurements and told the CNC to carve it, and then it comes off rough carved, and then you put the hand on it.
Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah.
When
you say put the hand on it, to me that means it's almost like you're imparting human spirit onto it.
There's no question about it, and I think that's, you really nailed it there. I mean, there's he's a really spiritual dude.
He is, yeah.
As you know, and it comes through in his instruments. I don't know how. I'm getting the hair on my arm just standing up as we talk about it.
Because it's spooky.
It's spooky. No, it's a beautiful thing, actually. It's immeasurable. It's not immeasurable. It's unmeasurable.
Unmeasurable, yeah.
And you can't even really talk about it. It's kind of a mystical experience, really. It's just something really special about what he can do. It's really hard to describe. He really is. He's a wizard.
Yeah.
He would balk at that term. There's just something special about what he does. It really is truly something. He's got people from all over the world. We're shipping instruments to Portugal and South America and Dominican Republic,
Asia,
Indonesia, Denmark, England, Germany.
Amazing.
All over the place. And, the idea now is to get a Marco bass in as many hands as we can, which is why he's developed an instrument called the N1, which is just a basic, no frills, no fancy finish kind of, it's a flat finish, on the instrument, because it doesn't take so long to get the instrument done. When you do a glossy finish, there's wet sanding and polishing and, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's much easier to, so, basically in an effort to bring costs down, but still give you high quality, he's doing the N1, which is, so for example, Chip Sheeran's got an N1 that he said, Marco, this is a $5,000 bass that you're selling for $1,800.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why you're doing this. But Marco wants to get a bass in everybody's hands, so it's good for business.
Right.
But also, when you see a basic instrument that is, a standard solid body instrument made by so-and-so and so-and-so for, between $3,800 and $5,000, you're buying a name, and what's the difference?
Uh-huh.
A lot of these guys, almost every sort of small luthier that you see who are building their own instruments, as it were, not Fender, not Gibson, not, any real factory-sized manufacturer, they've got their thing, and they carve their necks, and they've got their own. Some guys even have their own body shapes, and they're not doing a Fender Jazz shape, but they're using somebody else's pickups. Mm-hmm. They might have them wound to their specs,
right?
But they're still using somebody else's pickups. So the challenge that you deal with there is, that guy's bass sounds like that guy's bass, and it sounds like that guy's bass, and it sounds like that guy's bass, and they all begin to sound pretty generic,
mm-hmm.
right? The unique thing about Marco is that his basses don't sound like all that other stuff, because you get these really unique, specially made, hand-wound pickups at an affordable price. So you get an instrument that has the sound and feel of a $5,000 instrument for about $1,800.
Yeah, it's still a pretty high-end expense. But for what you're getting,
it's a lifetime instrument. And so that's also part of his thing, is that, he wants to get a good, there's no reason to charge $4,000 for something when, you can do just as good a job
mm-hmm.
at, say, $1,800. And, prices will go up every year, per inflation, et cetera, et cetera. It's just his, that's the kind of person he is. He's just a genuinely good guy. He doesn't need to be rich. He just get a good instrument in a person's hands. And there's something inspiring about getting your hands on a good instrument. When I started playing again about 10 or 12 years ago, after a long time away, I had one bass and it was good, but then I picked up this other bass and it was really a fantastic bass. And it changed the way I feel about the way I felt about playing. It made me want to play more.
Yeah.
And that's what he's looking for.
Right.
And so you've got this bass that is sort of like, I think Chris Bordezo described it as a sleeper, right? It's this, it's a hot rod of a bass in a really straightforward, unassuming package. Yeah.
Getting rid of that.
Getting rid of that thing there, yeah. So, I mean, it's just an outstanding instrument for the money. And he's got a 4-string version, a 5-string version, and working on a 6.
Now he makes Telecasters. Does he do the Strats too?
He's got a Telecaster and a Strat model. And, boy, again, ask John Passarelli how good the Tele sounds.
Yeah.
And you've heard it. I mean, it's such a good sounding instrument. It's just not even right. We had one over here just the other day. I mean, Sean
loved it.
Was raving about how easily it plays. I have less to say where I'm not a guitar player, so I can't comment a whole lot on guitars. But what I do know is the neck pickup on that Tele is just incredibly rich and beautiful. And I remember when we had John over here last September, a year ago now, and he was playing it for the podcast we did then. It just sounded incredible. Yeah. Those chords that he was playing. I mean, Marco just knows something. I mean, John said, Marco, I don't know what he knows, but he knows something about pickups. Yeah, that's right. And then a buddy of his said, those are the best sounding pickups I've ever heard in my life.
I lost one of the camera shoots to that. I still, but I still got. I'm still planning on putting that video up.
Right. Yeah.
But when I had challenges with my laptop, which is. It was drive challenges, and it was silly. Have to have duplicate drives.
Yeah, a second drive going at the same time, as it were.
Simultaneously. Right over here.
There it is.
There they are.
Yeah, both of them. So he's doing the same thing with guitars as he's doing with the. I mean, so the Tele is the N1 Tele, and he's got an N1 Strat, and they're going for. I'm not sure what those are going for, but they're in the same sort of $1,200 to $2,000 range, and it's as good a guitar as you're going to get anywhere.
Yeah. So you went to NAMM.
Yes, I did. Boy, that was an experience.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. From the beginning, man. So what you pre-NAMM, at NAMM, post-NAMM?
Oh, God, pre-NAMM. Well, pre-NAMM was a 19-hour drive after a 10-hour day working, setting up a mad rush of setting up instruments at the end of the day, to get them down there.
So it was a 19-hour drive?
It's a 19-hour drive from Salem, yeah. So...
Yeah, we pull in a trailer?
No, we rented like one of those, what do they call them now? It's one of those vans. Right. We rented a big van. I can't think of what they're transporter or transit or anyway, something like that. And we took the seats out of the back and piled about 20 basses in the back and half a dozen guitars and a bunch of amplifiers and 35 music stands and carts and everything.
Wow, you had
drove down packed. Yeah, we had it packed, and there were 4 of us in the car. Rosie, his wife, Marco, and Matthew, who's this really great kid from Indonesia, Singapore. He's from Singapore.
Met him, right?
Yeah. Sweetheart. Yeah, he was at dinner.
Yeah,
sweetheart.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah, right. That night. Yeah, you met him, and we drove down and set up. And the first day was just. It was a zoo, man. I mean, there were 200,000 people there. I mean, it was remarkable. Yeah. And it was just a lot of fun. And I think my favorite story. The best bass at the show was, in my opinion anyway, the bass that shocked people the most was, there were 2, but the one that's most accessible to people was sort of a light blue N1 5-string. It's the first full bass and neck that came off the CNC that was viable. It took him a while to get all the numbers punched into the machine right. It was totally passive. And the amazing thing about that bass is that when it was played fingerstyle, it sounded like it was made to be played fingerstyle. And then when someone did some slap and some pop on it, it sounded like it was made to do slap and pop. But it's totally passive. We have more than one person come and thump on the instrument and just their chin just drop to the floor, and then they'd look at you and go, "What? That's passive?" No, it's not.
Yeah.
And no, yeah, that is. That bass is 100% passive. And those are single coil pickups too that don't hum. I don't know how he does that.
Yeah.
But he does. And they're like, "No, that's look, you flip it over and there's no battery compartment.
Yeah.
This is a passive bass. There's no battery," and people were just blown away by it. And then
These are experienced bass players. I mean, these are...
these are pros.
Yeah.
And there's another guy, I can't tell you his name because I'll get in trouble with his sponsors, but so it was like the second or third, it was the second day, so it was Friday of NAMM, and this guy shows up, and I'm talking to him, and I realize who he is, and I said to him, "Well, these are the best passive pickups on the planet. I'm not," and he's like, "Yeah, right." And of course, you hear that all the time, right?
Right. From everybody.
You hear that from everybody at every booth at NAMM, and duh.
Yeah.
Right. So
the blah blah woof woof factor.
The blah blah woof woof factor, and so then he had this guy, this bass player, had his cadre with him, he had his crew with him, and there must have been 5 or 6 guys rolling around with him, and he took off. Didn't see him for the rest of the day, and then he came back the next day and sat down with a little 4-string, just a 4-string N1, and started slapping away at the thing, and he just kind of stopped, and he kind of looked up at me and he went, "Really?" And I said, "Dude, I told you yesterday these are the best passive pickups on the planet," and I'm not kidding. And he goes, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And he starts to slap and he's popping on the thing, and he just started going nuts. He was just like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great moment. And this dude, he's well known. He has a very strong internet presence.
Yeah.
And, any number of people, if I said his name,
they'd know.
Oh yeah, you'd know right away.
But yeah,
who he
keep
was.
that stuff. Yeah.
And I'll leave the story to Marco, because Marco can actually say his name.
Right. That's right.
But it was amazing. I met Dominique DiPiazza, who's one of my favorite bass players of all time, and he sat down and played a few instruments. And Marco makes the other side of the Marco line of the N1 is a bass that he calls, now I can't think of what it's called.
Sometimer Strikes Again.
Sometimer Strikes Again. Hang on. Let me gather.
Don't worry, man. It's terminal.
I can't think of the name of the bass right now.
Yeah, it'll come to you. I think you suffer from delayed intelligence. Just keep talking. It'll pop in.
Yeah. Anyway, but he also makes a really fancy bass that it's a set neck, so the neck is glued into the body, and it's got wings. It's made much more like one of the high-end, super fancy basses that you buy for $12,000 to $15,000. Yeah. It's got chambered bodies, and it's designed to resonate in a certain way, and the design is supposed to highlight the harmonics that are present in all instruments, and totally passive. Most of them are passive. This one had a preamp in it. This one had the Charlie Escher preamp in it, like I've got in my Yellow 5. And that bass, Dominique DiPiazza played it and started dinking around and started doing all these harmonics on it. And right away, immediately, he said, "Well, this bass is about harmonics. And this bass is about that super clean tone that you get."
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, he just... Dominique DiPiazza's played with John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I saw him 30 years ago in Seattle, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
So he's my age.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little older.
Yeah, he's your age.
Yeah.
And he thought that bass was incredible. I still wish I could think, God dang it, what is the name of that? What is it So there was one of those there.
It'll be the
I got it. No, it's a like I said, it's a set neck. It's got hollow body wings. Specially chosen woods that have a certain amount, very resonant sounding wood, very old wood. Again, the fancy Charlie preamp, special pickups. In fact, the pickups are so good that you can't play it through a normal everyday amplifier. They're too good for a normal everyday amplifier. They actually don't sound good.
They're wonderful. Just line in with a good preamp. Oh.
And you haven't heard those pickups.
But I think we're gonna.
Well, someday. You don't. Oh, it's called the VD.
The VD is the name of it. I told you you'd get it.
The bass is called the VD. That's right. And it's it just isn't even right. And this one guy,
it comes with its own dose of penicillin.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Its own dose of penicillin and a box of prophylactics. Right? But it's
we practice safe sound around here. Yeah. That's what we do.
So there was this, the other cool thing. So on that bass, this kid from Korea who basically plays bass like 17 hours a day. He was probably like 19 or 20. Just couldn't believe how good it sounded. And there was another older player came in. You might have, another middle-aged guy. He came in. I don't know who he was, but he was obviously a session player, not a known name at all, but very clearly a super good player.
Yeah.
And he sat down and he just came in he must have played the bass we had to kick him off the bass.
Did he buy one?
Well, he wanted to, but, Marco's like, he's like, well, how much do you want for the bass? And Marco's like, well, that bass would be $11,000 new. I'll sell it to you right now for $7,500 or something like that. I don't have the conversation in hand. And the guy's like, God, I don't know, man, but boy, I'll tell you what. It sounds as good, if not better, than my Olympics. An Olympic is like right? And one of the comments that he made about it was, and that's a 4-string, he said the first 4 frets, from E up to F sharp on that low E string, it's always very difficult to make an instrument, those notes, even on a 4-string, which is not a 5-string, the low B, those 4 notes to sound really clear and clean and precise and well articulated. He said, I've never heard a bass that sounds this good on those first 4 frets of the E string. Never. And he came back every single day and played it for like half hour, 45. I mean, he wanted that bass so bad. But,
I've been there before. I know about that.
He didn't have... but, it's that kind of special stuff that this guy's doing. And it really is truly... I mean, it's inspiring. I mean, it's like being around Leron.
Yeah.
Leron, the amazing keyboard player.
That's right, yeah.
Who, hey, Leron, do you know any Stevie Wonder songs?
Bam!
Yeah, I know them all. Right? You remember that?
Yeah.
I know them all.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, you do. Wow.
And he'll sing them too.
Right? And so, it's like that. I mean, you're literally in the presence of greatness, and it's inspiring. I mean, the things that he's doing is just amazing. I mean, I bought a 6-string bass that I plucked that bass like 3 times, and I went, okay, I have to buy this bass.
Yeah.
This is the finest instrument I've ever set my hands on.
Yeah, well, even though I'm a drummer, I do base all of my drum acoustic purchases on tone, all of it. And regardless of whether it's a cymbal or a snare or a tom or a kick drum, I just go up and tap it. It's a little more difficult to check resonance with a kick drum by just tapping it, but you can get an idea where the direction of the kick drum is going.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm just talking about a delicate little, just deer right next to the drum or the cymbal, and just a real quiet tap.
Yeah.
With my fingernail.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I hear all at the low volume all of the frequencies that I would consider abrasive or just generally not to my liking. I could hear all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's something like that. You know, I don't. And his bass is of course, you know, one of the measurements of an electric instrument, believe it or not, is how does it sound unplugged?
Of course, yeah.
You know,
I can tell when a guitar is a good guitar just by how it sounds unplugged.
Yeah, and there should be a certain amount of resonance.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I don't know what it is, but, you know, like, for example, with that 6-string, you know, I've had it for a while now. I've had it for it'll be 2 years in November. It sounds better now than it did before. And what I'm noticing about it is the entire instrument will start to vibrate when I'm playing it. When I touch it just right, the entire instrument starts to vibrate, and you can actually hear the sound sort of jump. The sound will jump into a different level of tone and feel. It is amazing.
That is really amazing.
And it's and for a while I was really concerned about it. I thought, oh shit, pardon my language, I've got wolf tones in this instrument, because for a while I was playing a lot in the same key, just trying to work out some chord progressions and some stuff, and I thought, oh man, it's got wolf tones in it. Damn it. You know? And then I started to play it in other keys, and it was doing it everywhere. I mean, so like you get the thing sitting next to your belly, of which there's a significant amount, and you can literally feel you can literally feel the instrument start to literally hum and vibrate, and
that's astounding.
And you can feel it in the neck, you can feel it in the body itself, and you can hear it. Wow. I mean, and I sincerely wish that bass did not have a preamp in it, because I would take the preamp out in a heartbeat. It's a very nondescript preamp made by a major manufacturer who's in every single, practically, you know, considered to be the high-end, one of the high-end preamps for bass guitar, and it actually ruins the sound of the pickups.
Wow, really something.
So, you know, there's something about the way he carves and puts, you know, the feel into the neck. There's something about the way he builds pickups, and there's something about the way that he finishes the instrument, and all those things together make him different than anybody else. Right, yeah.
So if somebody was interested in checking out Marco, it's marcobassguitars.com, right?
marcobassguitars.com. They can get a hold of me.
Yeah. At ericritts.com?
No, but I'm perfectly happy to put my phone number out there.
Yeah.
You know, you can call me at 206-850-0435, and I'll show up with several instruments, and we'll just sit down and...
No haters.
Right? Well, here's another one I want to share. You know, you got the N1 thing going, and then you get the VD on the other side. So he's got another model that's called the TFL, which is a step up from the N1. It's more or less the same bass as the N1, slightly different pickups, slightly thicker sound, and fancier finish. Right? And then, you know, of course, he's not even really doing the VDs anymore, because no one's going to be spending $12,000 on an instrument.
Dead inventory.
Yeah, but he doesn't even. He's got his own. He's got two of his own that will never see the market. But he's got a new one that's really interesting, and I have the first one. I have the first production model of this bass, and it's called the PB&J, and it's a precision bass or a jazz bass in one. Because a lot of times, you know, when you see what they call a PJ on the market, it's got a P pickup where, you know, precision pickup where a precision pickup is supposed to be, and a J pickup where a J pickup is supposed to be. And when you put those two things together, I don't know what happens, but they're kind of incompatible with each other. This is according to Marco, in the sense that the precision pickup is a humbucker. It's got two coils. You know, you look at a P pickup and you think that's two pickups, right? It's actually one.
Okay.
And then the jazz pickup is a single coil, and there's issues between the way those two pickups work, right? And so what happens is the P really doesn't sound like a P, and the J really doesn't sound like a J, and it doesn't really even sound like a J bass, jazz bass, because you don't have a pickup in the neck position either. So what Marco's done is he's made this really skinny P pickup in the front, two pieces, and then put a jazz pickup in between the P pickup and a jazz pickup at the bridge, and you can select between the two. You cannot run the jazz pickups with the P pickup, but you can choose either P bass or J bass. And we recorded with that bass here, and it sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting bass because it gives you a lot of options in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, and that first bass, he's come a long way with the P pickup since he's always been a jazz guy, you know, but he's come a long way with his P pickups. And they're even gnarlier and crunchier and dirtier than they were on that bass. And so what he's doing now is he's got that really, you know, it's that gnarly sort of angry P bass sound, but it's a little bit more refined than that. It's a little bit cleaner than that, but it's still just super aggressive with the jazz bass sound.
Yeah.
And you get an instrument that you can take into the studio. You're not carrying two basses into the studio.
Yeah.
You go into the studio and, you know, you're recording several tunes, and you want a P bass sound? Click. You want a jazz bass sound? Click.
There you go. Passive, there you have it. Yeah.
All passive, just fantastic sounding, really cool idea. And I can't remember who he got the idea from, but it was he got the idea from somebody who.
Yeah.
And so we gave it a shot. And, you know, that's another, you know, so that's a bass that's getting into the, you know, $3,500 range.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
A lot of versatility with
it. If you're a working musician, working studio pro,
right,
and you don't want to carry two instruments into a session, there you have it.
Yeah.
One single, you know, basically, and the one that I have has got two pickups at the two jazz pickups at the bridge, so 60s and 70s positions. So I have three basses in one.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a P bass, a 60s jazz, and a 70s jazz in one instrument.
Very, very cool. Nice.
So there you have it.
All right. Well, there you have it. So, hey, thanks. Hope you learned some things from Eric on the Marco Bass Guitars. www.marcobassguitars.com.
That's it.
And if you want to talk to Eric,
206-850-0435.
Yeah.
I'll set something up for you.
All right. Sounds great. Okay. Well, this is Brian at Mack-n-Cheeze with my good friend Eric Ritts. Dr. Jones, I bid you adieu.
Don't call me late for dinner.
Wait a minute, that's next.
That wraps up today's podcast. Thanks for listening. More of Mack-n-Cheeze is available at Mackncheeze.com. And if you like to read, Mackncheezemusic.blog. Thanks again for listening. If there's anything we can do to help you, get in contact with us. Take it away, Bruno.
What? No gravy?
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, please subscribe to Brian at Mack-n-Cheeze on YouTube. Just press that subscribe button and you'll never miss another episode. Hey, and you got that going for you, right? All right, cheers, have a great day.